Hello everyone. This lesson is going to be super quick and short, and then I promise in our very next lesson we will indeed learn about custom fields. Okay, but first in this lesson there's just a few miscellaneous things I want to cover. The first thing that I want to address is excerpts. So in our previous lessons we used the WordPress trim words function to just pull in the first 18 words of the main content field for each one of these posts. But in the real world, sometimes you don't want to just pull in the first 18 words. Maybe instead you want to create a handcrafted excerpt that you write yourself. To show you what I'm talking about, let's begin with this blog section, and then once we master that, we can move on to working on our custom post types here. So first with the blogs, let's just go and edit this "We won an award" post so I can show you what I'm talking about. So in the admin, click on posts. You might not have the exact same post titles as I do, but just go ahead and edit one of the posts that's being pulled in on your homepage at the moment. Okay, now at first glance, we don't see a field anywhere where we could type in a handcrafted excerpt. However, if we look in the very top right corner, we see screen options, and if you click that, you'll notice that there's a checkbox named excerpt. And once we check that checkbox, now below the main content field, there's an excerpt box. So now I can create a handcrafted message. I could say, our school has won another award this year. Right? Doesn't matter what you type, just type something. And then if I click update, we still won't see that excerpt here on the front end. However, now it's just a matter of editing this PHP code to do what we want. So in your text editor, within your theme folder, jump into frontpage.php, and you can scroll down a bit until you get to the From Our Blogs headline. Here's the custom query, here's the while loop, here's the title headline for each post, and right below it, here we see the trim words, and it will pull in the first 18 words of the main content field. Now instead of this, let's try pulling in that handcrafted excerpt we just wrote. So let's hollow out this PHP opening and closing tag, and instead we can just say the excerpt. So we see some good news and some bad news. For the post that does have a handcrafted excerpt, that looks beautiful, right? But for this post, where we didn't assign a handcrafted excerpt, it's going to pull in the first 55 words of the main content field as a fallback. Now it is possible to customize that value of 55 words to something else, but that will be used as the excerpt length globally on your entire website. And oftentimes you might not want to adjust the global setting or preference. You might want excerpts of different lengths depending on the post type or depending on the template you're on, right? The home page versus an archive, so on and so forth. So let me show you how I personally handle excerpts. What I do is combine the power of this the excerpt field with that trim words function that we were using before. So again, let's hollow out this PHP opening and closing tag, and this time let's begin with an if statement. So I'm going to say if, and then parentheses, and then let's open up curly brackets and drop down. Let's begin with our condition within these parentheses. Let's call a function named hasExcerpt. This function will only return a value of true if the current post has a handcrafted excerpt. So if this is true, what do we want to do within our curly brackets? Let's just display the excerpt. Okay, but if this evaluates to false, what do we want to do then as a fallback? Well, right after the curly brackets for that condition, we can just say else, and then its own pair of curly brackets. And now whatever we say here is like our insurance plan. So if a post doesn't have a handcrafted excerpt, let's just rely on the first 18 words of the main content field. So let's echo out the results of WP trim words. It takes two arguments. The first is what you want to trim, so get the content. Second argument is how many words you want to limit it to. So let's say 18. So if I save that, cool, this post uses the handcrafted excerpt. This post doesn't have an excerpt, so it just uses the first 18 words of the content. Now from a design perspective, I'm noticing that there's vertical gaps around this excerpt. And that's because our the_excerpt function handles echoing and outputting the content onto the page for us. So instead, we can use a function named getTheExcerpt, and then right before that, we can just say to echo it. So if I save that, we can see those awkward vertical gaps that were being created by the extra p tag have been removed. Okay, now I like the ability to have a handcrafted excerpt like this, so we probably want to apply that to our events as well. But if I try to go edit one of these event posts, for example, Poetry Day, so in the admin, click on Events in the sidebar, then edit Poetry Day, you'll notice that we do not see an excerpt field down here, and even if I click on Screen Options in the corner, there is no excerpt checkbox to check. And that's because when it comes to custom post types that we created, it's up to us to specifically tell WordPress that our post type should support excerpts. So right now, I want you to dig into your must-use plugins folder and jump into the PHP file where we called the register post type function. So within our top level array, maybe right before the rewrite line, the ordering doesn't matter, but this will work. What we want to do is use a parameter named supports. And then we set that to equal its own array. Okay, now within that array, we don't have to assign values to subparameters. We can just mention keywords that we want to support. So by default, new custom post types support the title field and the main editor or content field. And then it's up to us to add on any extra features that we want to support. So for example, we could say excerpt. All right, now as soon as I save this, if I try to edit an event post now, we do indeed see an excerpt field. So let's just say Poetry Day is going to be amazing. And save that. And then let's just update our homepage template to pull in handcrafted excerpts here. So now let's jump back to our theme folder, and within frontpage.php, there's no sense in us typing out all of this PHP logic again. This if statement that checks to see if there's an excerpt and if there's not. So why don't we just copy from the beginning PHP tag to the closing PHP tag, copy that into our clipboard, right? Because if it worked for blogs, it will work for events. And then let's just scroll up to our events custom query and the loop for events. And then here is where we used to just output the first 18 words. So we can just delete that and instead paste in our clipboard with this custom conditional logic, and we should be in business. Perfect. So that takes care of excerpts. Now let's change gears, and the next thing I want to work on is this View All Events button. Right now it doesn't have a real href value, so if you click it, nothing really happens. So back in our text editor, within frontpage.php, right below that event loop we were working on is that link that says View All Events. So we just need to update this hashtag so that when you actually click on it, it knows where to go. So let's drop into PHP and let's echo out the results of the function get post type archive link. Remember, this function will automatically get the correct archive URL. It only needs one argument, and that is the custom post type that you're interested in. So if I save that, now when I click on View All Events, it takes me to the events archive. Perfect. Now before we bring this lesson to a close, there's just one more thing I want to work on, and that has to do with our header navigation. Why don't we go ahead and make it so the events link actually works, and beyond that, it should stay lit up as yellow when you're on an events-based page. So within our theme folder, let's open up the header.php file. Here's the events list item and link. So first, let's just update the href value. So go into PHP. You could just copy and paste what we used just a moment ago, but it's echoing out the results of get post type archive link for the event post type. Okay, but beyond that, we want that link to be lit up as yellow when you're on an events page. So just like we did for the About Us link and the blog link, within the opening list item tag for events, let's go into PHP and let's write an if statement. So we'll say if, and what is our condition we want to check for? Let's say if get post type, so that's a function, it gets its own parentheses. If that equals, or if that returns a value of event, well, then we want this link to light up as yellow. Now, if your if statement is going to live all on one line, you do not need curly brackets. So on this same line, we can say what we want to do if this is true. So we just want to echo out a bit of HTML, and we want to say class equals, double quotes, and the class name is current menu item. Cool, so let's save that. And we can see that we're on the events archive and it's lit up as yellow. And if I click on one of the individual events, we're on the single page and it still lights up as yellow. Perfect. That's going to bring this quick lesson to a close. In our next lesson, we will get to custom fields. It's a very powerful topic. Let's keep things rolling and I will see you then.